Hey, what's going on, guys? Chris at Major League Performance. I'm in with my probably longest standing friend, James Pieratt, Wild Hunt Strength and Conditioning. How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Go ahead and give the listeners a little bit of your background. This is probably going to be the first podcast that we actually get into fighting stuff.
Oh, yeah. So I've done a little bit of everything. I lift. I'm a strength conditioning coach. I run ultramarathons. I'm an archery bear hunter. I do Jiu Jitsu still. I used to train MMA and pretty much everything and a little bit at some point in time. Pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. We've known each other since
fourth grade, before fourth grade,
just
right
before
around
fourth
then,
grade.
when I moved to this area.
And then, obviously, throughout the years, we've known each other, we've been around each other, we've hung out on multiple different levels, played sports together, worked out together, partied together, you know.
Yeah.
And then you had to, basically, you called me up one day, or you threw me a text, right? Mm-hmm. And he came in and he's like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And he wanted to run. Good job, Frankie. He wanted to run 50 miles right after deadlifting 500 pounds.
Yeah.
And so
I wanted your help playing around with the form and getting some of the specifics down, the details.
And James came in and he was asking me a bunch of details, and everything generally looked pretty good. And I think at that point we kind of just said, we'll dial in this one or two thing, and then it's a matter of just deadlifting a lot from there.
Stay on the current course.
Yeah. So how did that go? There's a documentary on it, right?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's on our Wild Hunt YouTube channel. It was good, man. It was good. It was, I've had a few good days in my life. That was one of them. I did the deadlift portion at Super Training, spotted by Andrei Malanchev. So that was always cool.
That was super cool. Yeah.
And the pull felt good. 500 felt good. Went and pulled 520 right after that. My max at the time was right about 540, so I was kind of tempted to go for a one pull after that.
Try a little bit more. Yeah. Maybe do the 550 and 50.
Something like that. I ended up pulling it back, just being wisely in the end. Because by the time I did my back off sets and then did my accessories and my cool down, I was walking out of there on pretty shaky legs. I was like, so now I get to go start an ultramarathon.
Oh, goodness gracious! I mean, the longest I've ever run at one point, I think, was 5 miles. So yeah, that was for CHP. And then it was one of those things where, the 5 miles is daunting, but multiply that by 10, it almost probably feels undoable, right?
It's just, it's like one, you chip away at some any one thing long enough and it crumbles. But the main thing, the run itself felt good. I messed up and sat down just a split second too long I only did 2 checkpoints in the whole thing, which again, ill-advised. You're supposed to do them every couple miles. But I only stopped twice and just briefly to switch out supplies and electrolytes and food and whatnot. And then, but on the second one, it was mile 38 or something in that vicinity. I just sat down. I knew better and I just did it anyway. And I thought I can just switch out my socks real quick, get up, and then go on no foul, right? And it didn't work out like that. Everything locked up. So up until that point, I was pretty much on track to smash my 12-hour goal for that. And the 12 hours wasn't a solid goal. It was more like something I'd like to do.
Yeah.
It had been a goal, something I'd intended to do as a goal further down the line, but it was 2 birds, 1 stone. That would have been nice, especially after deadlifting, 500 plus that morning.
Yeah.
And I was cranking out several 8-minute miles throughout that first 38 miles.
Dang, that's a quick pace.
Oh yeah,
that's
good.
quick.
I mean, it was too fast. You get really enthusiastic, and it's just hard. And then you just oh my God, what happened?
During the 5 miles, and now I'm trying to relate it. The first 2 miles, it's you feel really good, no matter what. And no matter how bad you want to pace it, your body almost doesn't want to. It doesn't allow you to.
Yeah, I end up. The more you do it, you start running into the opposite problem too, where It's like when your body warms up, you start feeling good, and you want to kind of ride the runner's high. You want to ride that wave, and you're like, ooh, I want more of that, but you need to kind of. It's like it's like that's fine in a run, or even like in a marathon to some degree. But it's like if you're going to be running for 12, 16, 24 hours, without actually resting, you need to be able to kind of like, all right, hold on,
Yeah.
So.
And you're pretty in tune. You played pretty high level sports most of your life.
Yeah.
So was there a point where you felt like this wasn't going to happen?
No. I've never actually felt that in all this stuff I've done, endurance and otherwise. But this was the first time where I could feel the end in sight for my body.
Gotcha.
My body was well prepared for it. Just the way I train is, was completely well-rounded anyway. I do long runs, I do rucks, and I do everything.
Literally watching him work out in the gym during this time period, it was one of those where it was like, the deadlift was clearly the emphasis, but all the auxiliary had a purpose, and he had a lot of auxiliary. And if it's one of those things where it's like, for me, I'm very regimented and very squat, bench, deadlifty, but not too many people can hang out that way. And I've seen it in his training, watching him train people. He has a great variety of productive work, and obviously he used that on his own training.
Yeah.
Probably kept it so like you felt like you were always moving towards something.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. We do minimum effective dose of the heavy compounders. I don't think you can get by without those if you want to be an athlete at the high level, frankly. But where we put more emphasis on than most people is the GPP, general physical preparedness. Your sleds, your carries, your tires, all that sort of stuff. We really like weighted carries, forward and backwards.
Suitcase.
Yeah, suitcase, farmers, heavy, light, short, long. Like I said, running them forwards, running them backwards. Little small bits of calisthenics, pull up. Not too dissimilar from the stuff you really do. We do a little more GPP, but that's just because my guys are less of them are in regimented sports, and more of them are like, hey, I'm in the military, I'm in law, you know what I mean? And different situations.
And their sport takes a lot more damage than probably any other sport out there.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, my program actually started feeding off his quite a bit, because ever since he showed up, there was the sled just happened to be out very often.
Oh yeah.
And then immediately I was like, man, he fed me this little stem, this little seed, and now it's grown into just basically he is. Carries and sleds, drags and pushes have been now a staple in the last block
awesome.
for my guys. And it's one of those things where it was like, you just need a refresher, and you need someone doing it with a purpose to put it back into your program.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's nothing new. It's just, you know what I mean? But it's just, and also when you train for long enough and enough ways, I kind of forgot about that.
Yep.
And there, even, like.
It gets lost in your onion of working out.
Exactly.
Right?
But no, I think that stuff's good even for Olympic lifters or baseball, anyone, and even in a regimented sport, more work capacity, more stability and on a single leg, and more joint strength, and like force production is
never bad.
Yeah.
So I asked Casey a little bit about sport specificity for you, and as you're a coach of fighting athletes. Is there any fighting specific stuff that you do, or is it mainly about how much capacity they can maintain through their fighting and like is based off of how you program?
So essentially, like the program you're running for your guys would track pretty well. So, like it's not a lot of guys that try to create high specificity stuff, and I never have. Like yourself, I'm a meat and potatoes guy.
Yep.
I want something with durable joints, decent range of motion, a lot of force production, a lot of endurance, and just a crazy amount of work capacity. So they're durable and they can take a licking and keep on ticking and just keep coming and show up to training every day consistently. And so that's what I like in my guys. And yeah, you introduce a little bit of specificity right up before something. And generally, if you got a guy who has a strong posterior chain, strong push, pull, squat, and hinge, he has great work capacity. Everything is good with his, stable through his ankles and knees, through his wrists, elbows, and shoulders, and he has a good, cardiovascular base. Like that's a monster right there.
Yeah.
In any sport.
Well, and based off of kind of what you're mentioning is like, I'm going to take this from Joe Rogan that said this multiple times on his podcast, but like weight training, like and strength conditioning programming it makes you robust. And so to go along with like one of your comments you just said was to show up every day. If you are blowing it out for 2 weeks and you are maxing out and going really hard on the weights, you're going to miss a week because you're just going to be throttled, right?
You're never going to catch me. And I'm doing minimum effective dose, but I'm doing it 365 every day.
Every single day. And, I talk about that. I'm not necessarily like you to deadlift 500 was super fast. It
was about 8, 9 months somewhere in there from not really deadlifting,
at
all, just kettlebells and stuff like that.
And that's where it's like he's a great athlete, right? I've seen him play soccer, football, track, like all of that kind of stuff. He is a fantastic high-level athlete, and by athlete I mean run, jump, explosive, great coordination, right? And for me, I have a tendency to be coordinated, but my explosive power is not quite there, right?
You're strong as shit just overall, though.
But that's the thing. The strongest shit comes from, like you were saying, it's a consistency thing, right? I know guys that could walk in here today, out squat, out deadlift, and out bench me by exponential amount. But there's a reason why we're close, because they're not here every day.
Yeah.
If they were here, they'd be top level athletes, right?
If.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of if, and that's kind of one of those things where it's like I think for James, it's he's got the best of both worlds. He has the athletic performance, and so when he decides to something, and to go off something else, you said it gets done, right? I say it to my guys a lot when there's a weight that clearly they're strong enough for. They have to make a choice to just make it happen, right?
Commit 100%.
And so that's probably what you're feeling a lot on running that 50 miles, right? Where it's just like, I'm going to make this happen because I choose to.
Yeah, for sure. The longer you go, the more dramatic, your internal narrative gets. But more than that, you kind of I've always kind of anthropomorphized my fears and insecurities, I'm visualizing actual people, not actual people or demons, whatever you want to call them, characters in my mind.
I know a lot of people use demons for that kind of stuff.
I do, and my thing is defiance in the face of that, so I tend to kind of be egged on by it, and so I make that decision, it's I look at them and I point to the ground, it's I'll die here, will you?
Will you?
And so once you commit, and it's not about dying or being tough or trying to be David Goggins, but it's once you make that decision and you're just all in, then you're all in, you're free. At that point, that's liberty. You're all in. There's
no other choice.
Yeah, and it feels great. Really.
When I was doing a lot of CrossFit, a lot of guys they talked about going dark, right? And mentally going dark. You're just. And I think I've only answered it a few times in my career as CrossFitting, but it was one of those where it's I don't remember the workout. Because it's just you're so dark, but it was the best score I've ever gotten or something in that regards. And the people around me were just there's nothing here. You were just doing the movement until it was done, until the time was up or until the reps were done. And it was that is so freeing and so, it's a drug.
You get possessed by the rhabdo.
Oh.
Get a little touch of that rhabdo.
Have you ever gotten rhabdo before?
Not that I know of, but probably. I mean, I've never been hospitalized for it, but I was a notorious overtrainer. Now my body's had years to get used to it, and I've both become more intelligent and moderate with the volume and application, and more symbiotic in how I arrange the different types of training so that the variety gives me active recovery and broad spectrum stuff. But I used to literally train as many hours a day as I slept. I work 10 hours in a warehouse. I'd sleep 6 hours a night and then train 6 hours a day in different settings, including the lunch break where I'm running. And so
you were running on your lunch breaks?
So I'd lift before, I'd wake up at 4, wake up at 4, be at the gym by 4:30, lift, be at work by 7, go on my run on the hour of my lunch break. I had all my stuff there ready. I had a whole system with wipes and everything ready to go right there. And then I'd slip, and usually run a little past when I was supposed to, and slip back in the back.
Boss is mad.
He survived.
He survived.
And then after, I'd go train for MMA, whatever I was doing after either a team alpha male or Jiu Jitsu.
You were alpha male. Yeah. I was gonna say, now that you said that, I think I remember that. That's a big name.
I never really ran with Uriah or anything, but I trained there through 2018, 2019.
But still, it's one of those where it's you in the weightlifting community, you talk about going to training with Cal Strength. It's some great dudes, some Olympics level guys, Same thing with alpha male. There's
one of my best friends to this day. Shout out to Nick Yatta. One of my best friends to this day. I met, I'm training there during that era. So it was a good time.
So those freeing times, right? So you're talking about like how much you trained, and obviously you've gotten smarter, and application changes a little bit. Do you miss those days where it was just gas pedal, or do you kind of look at it kind of like I could have gotten more out of it, but mentally and emotionally it was probably, like you're saying, freeing?
Yeah, really, I feel both. They might those descriptions might be at odds, but I feel both. Sometimes at once, sometimes at different times. But the thing is, I do revisit it sometimes. Like, I don't always keep my running volume super high. I'm not always, like I do generally run once a week long or 2 times a week. But even if my running volume's not high and I feel like running, I'll still go out and bang out 20 miles, or, you know what I mean? Goodness. 20, 30, whatever.
I don't even like to drive that far.
No, the main thing is time. So it's like,
that's true.
It takes me, like I can run a marathon. I mean, I've never tried to run a marathon for time, but if I just go out and start hitting trails and, uphill, downhill, over rough ground, all that, and I add up time, it's usually I measure that for 4 hours by the time I get 20, 4 hours, 30 miles. Depends on the terrain, but it's like, so you need that amount of time, which means either waking up early or, whenever. And so my run generally is Sunday morning before we go to church, so I'll wake up way earlier than my fiance and get out and run. Right now they're not super long, but when they are, I get up really early and then I'll go run and then come back and shower and get ready for church at 9 or 10, whenever time we have to leave at 10.
Well, and that's the having a partner, which congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you recently proposed. She said maybe.
Yeah. She said we'll see.
We'll see.
Probably not, but we'll see. Yeah.
No, he was. That was a good time. He came in. He was like, "Hey man."
He was one. You were one of three people outside my outside my immediate bloodline who knew that was coming before she did.
Man, yeah. Well, congratulations. But he found a partner that is willing to see your vision with you. Yep, see your vision with you, and willing to participate. So. Out of curiosity, what was her role in the Deadlift 500 run and ultra? She did pretty much everything besides the running and the lifting. So through just some unexpected circumstance, we lost essentially we were going to have 2 other people on the support team. They last minute weren't able to make it, so Janae ended up doing the whole thing by herself. I mean, she didn't sleep that whole time either. Dang.
You know what I mean? And I was constantly stressed, especially because it was a solo run. It was unsupported. There were no oversight.
There's no safety.
Check-ins,
Yeah.
And so a lot of that trail was in the dark, alone, uphill, downhill. You know what I mean? Couple. Maybe a close call or 2. I won't admit nothing, but
yeah, she's gonna listen to this and just be like, "You did what?"
Yeah, so we'll circumvent that the specifics, but yeah, we'll say that she earned her stripes on that one.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough go. I know, as having a significant other, there's always like the stressors of what they're going through. And then you trying to help and obviously trying to do the right thing by helping. But with that, it's like, there's a sense of danger. And running 50 miles, you're covering a lot of space. So you said no check-ins. Come on, Frankie.
Hey, there you go.
Gotta do it twice.
Keep your feet planted.
Oh. Even I saw. I'm not even an ollie guy.
So where was the run itself?
So I started over in Roseville, at my place essentially.
At your house?
Well, why leave anywhere else to
That's
start
actually
training to accumulate mileage? So I went over to Granite Bay, into Granite Bay through a trail that runs along the back of Granite Bay into Folsom up towards the Folsom Reservoir. From there to the Folsom Reservoir, around the lake, back through the lake trails up to. Okay, so you know where we used to hang out, and then if you keep going all the way, anyway, around Folsom Lake a bunch.
Yeah.
Folsom.
You got to cut across like the North Fork.
So around the lake, basically, to anyone who's not super familiar with where we hung out as kids. And then back to Roseville, and then back to Granite Bay.
And then back to Granite Bay. That's a great, terrifying run.
It was long.
Well, and so like that dark thing, I did Rena Tahoe Odyssey with Barnum Mechanical, my offsite client, and I made the mistake of volunteering myself, and I was like, most of them are good runners, and they're like, hey, like you have to do it since it was your idea, because they wanted the team bonding thing. And then I got to run, I think that was on the I forgot what highway it was, but it was basically going from just up the hill on the way from Carson City to Tahoe, okay, but the downside.
So and it was nice elevation though, as far as your cardiovascular system goes.
So it was the beginning, it was downhill, and then it flattened out, and it was dark, and I couldn't see anything, like to the point where I rolled my ankle on some rocks that just happened to be there. Yeah. But it was one of those things where it was like, this is probably nobody experiences, obviously you're getting the runner's high, right? You're by yourself. Like you have a flashlight on your head so you can barely see anything. But then you're like, why do I need a flashlight if I can't see it anyways on the rocks? So you just turn it off and you run in the middle of the road. And it was a 2-lane road, and it was one of those where it was like open sky, moon, stars, and it was like this euphoric kind of feeling.
Beautiful.
But for you, it probably wasn't like that.
You go through moments of that, and then you're like, "Oh, am I going to step on a rattlesnake?" Like, well, you know what I mean?
Well, because yours was like a trail run.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I had a road that I can kind of.
Yeah, it got harder to see. I planned it on a night that had some good moonlight. You know, just on the off chance. It went deeper into the night than I would have liked. But no, you know, it wasn't the first time I've run trail in the dark. But you know, it was cool. It's always beautiful out there, and it's strange to kind of always. You feel so detached, and yet you run in by some of these people, some of these houses, like I talked about in the documentary, and you're like, those people seem a world away. Like their experience in reality right now is different than mine, but more than that, like on the other side of that glass lies an entire different world. It's cold, and it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm in the world out here, and this is this little bubble of safety and comfort.
Well, and that's a very interesting thing, because we talk about this all the time about experiencing the same thing differently. Right,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's like you and me working out together. Like what we're processing and what we're doing and what we're feeling are two very different things, even though we're doing the same squat or the same bench, right? And that gets even more extreme when you're doing something like that. Like they just see a guy running. Oh, he's getting his workout in. Like no, he's gotten 38 miles under the belt and 500-pound deadlift and hamstring curls and quad extensions and all this kind of stuff. And the stresses in his life, you know, he's building a business and he's doing this and he's got, you know, this was before the marriage.
Secretly plotting.
Yep, secretly plotting his marriage proposal. And so like those stressors, the amount of I don't want to call it suffering because a lot of it is good stuff, but stress, the amount of stress, pressure put on you versus someone eating dinner in their house.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Even though they're in like literally the same vicinity. I think the more I think about that kind of stuff, the more wild I think that kind of stuff is.
Yeah, you know, the spectrum of human experience is vast. It can be, you know.
I forgot who it was. He's a swimmer, I think. And he did really long.
Ross Edgley, that guy.
It could be.
He swam around Great Britain.
I did.
Was that him?
That's the only swimmer I know of. So
he was on a podcast.
I learned of him on road like a couple of years ago.
So it could be him. So one of the things he said is like he was trying to swim 50 miles.
Damn.
Don't quote me on this. I could be way off. But he basically said, I felt like I was going to die. And then it's like this ultra human low, right? The lowest of the low. You dying right before you die, you probably feel the worst ever, right? To, obviously, he finished the thing and he found the beach. And he laid on the beach. And he said there was a starry night. And it was one of those things where it's like, I think he said, you can't experience the highs without the lows, right? And it's one of those things where it's like the harder you push the lows, the higher the highs are.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of those things where a lot of people don't even get to experience that in their lifetime. They don't push the low.
No, I don't think they will. I don't think it's Like, I mean, I don't even think these days probably most guys that lift probably like haven't been pushed it so far into cardio hell that they've just vomited. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd be curious what the percentage is.
I don't know, because I've been doing that. I've been puking in sports since I got 11. You know what I mean? Like, I ran liners till I puked when I was like 9.
I was going to say,
we did wrestling conditioning. Like
your wrestling conditioning, I've never experienced that, and thank goodness.
I mean, it's character building as much as anything. But and now I think child abuse and whatever else, you probably don't see much of that. And
yeah, that's true.
I mean, we know the effect that it'll have on the next generation, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not going to be. You're not going to have guys doing crazy feats of strength. Like you mentioned Goggins, and it's one of those where it's like you kind of look where he came from, and you look where he got, and you look where he came back from, right? And it's one of those where it's like he's experienced not only the long-term emotional, physical lows of life, but he's also had each instance that he has in a day is that high-low, right? Yeah, well, and that's where, if you were, out of curiosity, if you were to someone were walking right now is like, I want to start experiencing your world, like when it comes to everything that you do, like bow hunting, working out, trying these crazy ultras and running and deadlifting, like what would you tell them? What was the first thing that you would have one of your guys do that has never experienced that? They've just been here.
That's a really good question. I'd have them start at the beginning. It would depend on the guy, and essentially we attack weaknesses, the biggest weaknesses first. So if you came to me and you had spaghetti arms and you couldn't do a pull-up, and you couldn't bench press your body weight, then we're gonna address that. But honestly, we're gonna address that anyway.
Yeah.
So generally, we're gonna build the 4 basic movement patterns: your push, your pull, your squat, your hinge. We're gonna build your aerobic base so you can kind of handle and recover from these basic things, and then we're gonna build your GPP and your durability. And from there, once your body can start taking small doses of actually hitting the mountains hard, and it's going to be rough on your body, or rolling, or doing whatever the other stuff.
Well, that's the rolling is one of those where it's like I've been a good athlete my whole life, and I rolled probably like 10 times in my entire life, and I've never felt worse about my overall ability.
The cardiovascular and your
I literally couldn't do anything against a guy that was 40 pounds less than me. And so in those moments, obviously, like the mental fortitude of just being like, I understand that I'm low on the totem pole of skill. Right. So if someone came in and they look at you, they're like, hey, we're 2 weeks into this, and I don't think I can do this. Like, how do you change their mentality? How would they themselves change their mentality to be like, I have to? You know what I mean? Versus a want. It has to turn into a need, right?
Yeah, it has to. I mean, that fire has to be in you, because I couldn't spend 40 hours a week in an office taking an account. That fire doesn't burn in me.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that desire. As far as if they're feeling doubt, I mean, first of all, you're more powerful than you realize. And it's true with almost every single person.
And that's the biggest thing that I think I see.
Oh yeah, and
no one understands their power.
Well, it's like you're not going to die. Is this run going to actually kill you? Because if the answer is no, then what are we talking about here? Is this thing? Have you committed to this thing entirely or not? And that's not. I'm not shaming anyone. It's not a work thing, but it's like if you make this decision, then you owe it to yourself to commit to it absolutely and see what you're capable of, because it's sitting there right there on the table in front of you. Reach out and grab it.
Yeah. It's I talk about especially with a lot of these youngsters, they have the craziest hormones. They're 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And they're basically indestructible, and they're worried about overworking. And I was like, certain movements, yes, you can't do too much, and certain things you can't do too much. But if your overall work capacity equals your ability to adapt and recover, you're mutants.
No, if you're 15, 16, 17, and you're eating and sleeping even reasonably well, then you can recover from almost anything. Because, I mean, you and me are about 20 years beyond that. We find a way. You're going to be all right.
Yeah. All right. Well, and I think that's where, like, without that, because we got pushed when we were teenagers, right? And so we know that we're not going to die. But the people who don't, like the guy I'm referencing who's like, 2 weeks, I can't make it happen.
Right.
I think they need to realize, like, that's still in your tank. Like, your threshold is way up here and you're hanging out here.
I agree.
It's hard because I want to go into their mind and just like rewire a couple things and be like, at 50 years old, you can start deadlifting and squatting and benching and
you're going to feel better.
A crazy amount of gains and production, even if you don't even think about sleep, even if you don't think about eating, even if you just do it on a 5-day-a-week program, wild things are crazy.
Sure. And then also, to be fair, on the other hand, like if you're doing this for 2 weeks and you're asking myself, why can't I do this? Well, take a look why. Well, what is it that you can't do? I mean, if you designed your own program, that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of lack of information in their head too.
Yeah, or if you're working with a coach who's trying to, a bodybuilding coach, or whatever, and you're training you in a certain way that is counterproductive or an obstacle to the other, your actual goals. Stuff like that happens. But if not,
like I want a bigger bench, but he has you run all the time. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Might not be,
or just doing hypertrophy stuff for shoulders and arms.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, kind of, right? But
not specific. Yeah, not force production, not actual strength progress.
So there's that. But then, so the main thing is like maybe your volume's too high. Like if you're gonna start working out tomorrow and you think you're gonna be David Goggins in 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or even however many, you're not going to. It's just not going to happen. So give yourself small doses. You want to distill it down to how to approach this just as an operating principle. Find the minimum effective dose of the maximum effective methodologies and apply those, okay? Tiny bits, however much, just enough to stimulate your body to grow in the ways that you want. And especially if you're going to be training in multiple ways, like lifting heavy, running long, sprinting, jumping, rolling, hitting the mountains. If you're going to be doing all that, then it's going to need to be small doses.
Well, and I think that you're driving on the exact point I was kind of like thinking about in my head was, motivation, right? Motivation can come and go, right? Like you've seen me work out in here where I have high motivation. You've seen me work out when I have low motivation. Like the other day, like literally yesterday, he came in.
Yeah, we were having the same conversation.
Yep. It was about motivation is, it escapes you very easily. But the fact is, he has a habit of coming in at a certain time. So he showed up and he got a little bit done. And I think there's a lot of people where it's like that first 2 weeks, like you're saying, the motivation is high because it feels great and it's euphoric. But then without the habit development, you're just too sore to show up. And then you start missing 1 or 2 days, and then it's 3 or 4, and then you haven't seen it in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I think the habit, right?
It's discipline. And discipline isn't always what people assume that it means, like getting up and going hard and psyching yourself up in the mirror and whatnot.
Like you're saying, the Goggins principle. It's not exactly that.
No, a discipline is showing up consistently every day, but it's also doing your warm-up, doing your cool-down, doing your PT, holding to your actual diet, not coming in, burning, lifting hard and then going out and drinking with your friends, staying up all night and having a donut. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just the work ethic, it's the consistency over the long term, and that's the thing that's going to make champions, not how hard, anyone can dose pre-workout, play their favorite song and slap themselves in the face and hype up, but it's that guy who shows up every day for 5, 10, 20 years. That's the guy, that's the monster. That's the guy who eventually overtakes you. That's, that's Rocky.
That's, what is it? Hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work type of thing. Like, I know that's cliche, but I feel like we kind of hit on that earlier where it's like I know a bunch of guys that are stronger, faster, more athletic, more explosive, you know what I mean? Like but they just there's a lack of the discipline, right? And don't get me wrong, peace out, Frankie. Don't get me wrong, like I've been through bouts of lack of discipline. Like I talked to you, like my last about 2 months of workouts have been maybe 2, maybe 3 times a week, maybe even missed a whole week and haven't deadlifted. But I'm in the gym, obviously forced to because it's a business. But I'm in the gym, I think about doing something, and then it's like, okay, I have a little bit of motivation. Great time to use the motivation to build a habit.
Well, I walked in yesterday and you're picking up 500 pounds. And so it's like, your consistency is there over the long term, and that is what matters. And you're also a dad who has other stuff and jobs and stuff going on. So it's like, not everything is going to be perfect, but are you going to be here, that week, that after you miss that session, or even that whole week, are you going to be here the next week?
Yep.
Because that's what consistency is.
That's the consistency. And as we're talking about this consistency thing, like you said, it goes along further than just the gym portion. I think a lot of people are so dead set on I need to have a perfect day of eating. And then they have a binge day of eating. And then if you think about it on a day-to-day basis, you're going to lose that battle. Did I have a caloric deficit over a week? Okay. Did I contain that through the month? Yeah. What about the next 3 months? And then from there, all of a sudden, you've been eating right for a year and you've lost the weight. Versus so many people, they want the 4-week challenge, the 8-week challenge to lose all the weight they've gained over the last 15 years. Like,
so, yeah, no, that's not, I mean, I can tell people right now, I'm naturally pretty lean. I burn a massive amount of calories across the full spectrum. Even I'm not getting shredded in 4 weeks.
He told me he was trying to bulk and he was like eating a ridiculous amount of food and he's like, yeah, I put on 3 pounds. He tried really hard.
Eventually, I'm about 190 now as opposed to my 180 something.
Thick?
But now I'm gonna sleep back down a little bit, slim back down a little bit.
I think 85, 185. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like the whole thing was, let's hit this bulk. I'm probably put on 15 pounds. Let's walk away with 5 quality tissue.
Yeah.
Probably take better part of a year to actually do. And then so now it's been 9 months however long, and now I'm finally like, all right, let's get back.
Now it's like get back to it.
Yeah.
So on that consistency thing, when you were trying to bulk, did anything really change in regards to like your workout here? Was there more hypertrophy, GPP?
Not a damn thing.
I
changed nothing. I go from eating maintenance to eating 200 to 300 calorie surplus. My protein goes a little bit lower, just to create, fit in a little more carbs and fat for the same macro. So instead of having 220 or 240 grams of protein, I'm eating 200 grams of protein, and instead of eating 3,400 calories, I'm eating 37, something like that, approximately.
Well, and that's so that this you hit exactly on the point I was getting at. That what you do in the gym when it comes to weight loss or weight gain really shouldn't have a say.
Gym for performance, essentially.
Yep.
To physique to the extent that you benefit from that, and you and I do bodybuilding accessories, but it is lateral raises to build our shoulders and our neck, and it's and it's upright rows to build our upper
Nothing
it's all to reinforce a functional point. We do glute stuff not because we want our cakes to look good on the gram, but because you and I both deadlift a shit ton, and we need those glutes for lockout and stability.
We need it to lock out and be strong.
We sprint, we run, we need those shock absorbers.
Yeah. Well, I've gone all the way down to like a really cut like 182, and I've been all the way up to 220 where I Pieratt on all my lifts. And during that time, nothing changed outside of what I was eating. One was no carbs, and one was like 8 cups of white rice a day to bulk. And it was one of those where it's like, hey, you have the amazing ability to change your body. I'm like, not necessarily me, it's everyone. It's just a matter of nobody is willing to keep track.
It also takes longer than you expect. Even I create massive caloric surpluses just by the nature of my training, and it's still usually a good cut for me. Notice is 8 weeks, and that's that's being completely disciplined and doing all the things that I do that create massive furnace of calories.
Increasing that body.
So it's if you want to look, you're generally looking if you're not in shape at all and you want to be, it's generally you're looking about 2 years before you're looking someone who's legitimately in shape, and that's a lot of consistency.
That is a ton of consistency.
Even if you're fit and you want to go from fit to shredded, you might have a good year cut in front of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially if you're doing it with the reverse diet and the diet breaks, and all the things along the way that maintain quality mass, keep you feeling human and not like a skeleton,
like a zombie.
Yeah, that takes time, but doing things the right way usually does.
And then so that goes along with the point. It's like you some of the bro science guys that you've talked to. It's like
Professors.
I'm gonna McDonald's for 3 months. I don't know, or pizza for 3 months, and they get this bulk, and it's just fatty tissue, right? There's no real solid production, and then they try to cut it. But because of that terrible eating habit they developed, they didn't do it with clean, natural or normal food that's bland. They did it with this great tasting stuff. So now their taste buds,
dense as shit.
Yeah, and then their taste buds are acquired to the pizza and this, and then their cut is so much harder versus, like I said, my bulk comes with rice. That's my bulk.
Yeah.
for the most part.
Rice, beans, fruit are the ones that I tend to use to create, surpluses of carbohydrates. And for fats, it's coconut oil, avocado. It's like coconut oil, a tablespoon of coconut oil in my coffee instead of a teaspoon, stuff like that. It's
just small incremental that accumulates over the whole day.
And even my meats stay relatively the same. It's like sometimes I'll have a ribeye because it's a fat, but generally it's like I'm still eating venison or elk or like Piedmontese beef. And I'm just adding an avocado, a sliced avocado with some lime and pink salt on it. And it's like I was talking to Mark and Chris about this, it was Chris I was talking to last about this. But it's like, but think about it. If you can have, for X amount of calories, you can have a ribeye, or you could have a lean steak. Prepared well, it's going to taste amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to have more protein, less fat. And then you just, to get that extra fat, you add a slice up an avocado and squeeze some lemon and pink salt on it, garlic, whatever you want. And you're getting the micronutrients, you're getting the fiber. Avocados have a weird amount of fiber too. You wouldn't think they would. They're pretty fibrous.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, random. But anyway.
Thought of the day.
You're getting this broad spectrum micronutrients, and which is another thing that the gym bros would be lacking in their pizza bulks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, their pizza bulks.
Where's your fiber, your vitamin A, your vitamin K, all these things. And I'm sorry, you can take a multivitamin, but that's like a multivitamin is like a medical intervention. Like that's you know what I mean? That's something you give
something's
someone.
wrong in your diet.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So what's going and nothing wrong. Just take a multivitamin or greens powder, something to plug any holes, because we generally all have them. We're not perfect.
Everyone has it. A buddy of mine was talking about a lot of foods are lacking in fiber nowadays for whatever reason, and so he's taking a little bit of a fiber supplement, but also has a lot of the extra greens.
So I do. I just take that orange psyllium husk. Like we get a big thing from Costco.
Okay.
The reason I do that, it acts as a really good flavor masking agent. This is just a random fact, but so I sometimes. So I'll have
a lot of these things taste really
random, right?
Yeah.
But so I have 2 shakes a day. One is like my normal protein shake. Same, every morning is 50 grams or so whey protein, some Fairlife milk, several handfuls of spinach.
You go milk in there?
Yeah, so Fairlife is lactose free, half the sugar, twice the protein of normal milk. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, bro. Fairlife's a business. Doesn't mess with your stomach at all.
We have that in the vending machine
it's
over
good.
here.
So I do Fairlife milk, and I do every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, I'll do some raw milk just to keep the gut bacteria, the GI tract nice and healthy. But that shit gets expensive for one, and for two, you don't need to be constantly drinking raw milk. You can top off your natural, microbiome
without having a lactose load.
Yeah, exactly. And so I get depending, fat free or the lower fat Fairlife milk, and I use that. So usually to make stuff. I'm not just drinking it very much, but.
Just straight glassing it every night.
Yeah. so then my first shake is the whey, the spinach, the Fairlife, some ice, and I might throw a little bit of that orange psyllium husk powder in there. But the main thing I use it for is I make another shake later in the day that again it's green, some fruit, and a bunch of 0% Greek yogurt.
Oh yeah, there's not
more milk, and I throw some of that in there, and it makes a really good smoothie.
Well, and that's the thing. You kind of look at that, and even for me, it's kind of like I had that little bit of that bitter taste in there thinking about it, but it masks that pretty well. Okay.
And not just with yogurt, with other stuff too. I used to. Now I just take the capsules because I'm always in a rush. But I used to do liver and greens and a bunch of stuff like powders, and then just shake them up and pound in water and pound it, which was recklessly nasty.
With the water, it's pretty gross. I mean, I'm sure the Fairlife adds some flavor.
It helps, but the adding just a serving of the orange psyllium husk powder just masked that up. So that was when I started doing that, plus a little extra fiber in the diet. And now I don't just track my macros, I also track micros and fiber.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And it's just the same album. I'm not doing it literally anything different. I just switched from MyFitnessPal and Carbon over to Chronometer, which is...
Hey, in case you guys are curious, he needs a sponsor. Come on.
I'd be the wrong guy. I use the free one for
But, the free one works great.
It does. I can verify that. No, I think the pay one has some extra stuff on there. But at this point, I'm pretty well in tune with my diet. I just need something to track it, keep me informed throughout the day where I'm at. I'll get to a point in my day where I forget to eat, something like that. So.
Well, you've been pretty busy. You came in the other day and you were telling me you already accumulated. Well, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
You accumulated how many hours of work?
About 72.
That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's spread across different things. That's training people in person. That's programming or coordinating online athletes, or it's dealing with the social media account or the academic research for the actual strength coaching aspect.
Yeah.
What else do I do? Oh, I teach at 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu also 3 times a week, and I think I do other stuff. I just can't remember it now.
It's a lot of stuff.
Hunting, gotta hunt.
I was gonna say, so with all this stuff that you have on your plate, what's your best? Do you feel stress often, or is that kind of one of those things where you've been very good at dealing with?
Yeah, no, not really.
Do you think part of that has to do with efficiency?
Yeah, some. I mean, I'm constantly working on refining systems. Not just working harder, but working smarter, finding ways for my efforts to bring more returns. So it's like you can hit a stone wall with a sledgehammer over and over, and eventually you'll get through. But if you resolve to do that forever while also keeping an eye out for a jackhammer and a little TNT as it comes, it tends to help.
Tends to help a little bit.
Yeah.
When I think that organization, because watching him work, I literally came to him the other day and was kind of like, man, I'm feeling stressed. And he was like, here, this is what you do. And he I already had it on the table, and he's like, this is what I do. So this is the hashtags that I went and found. And once you have it, you have it. And I was like, man, I'm unorganized. My cell phone notes on there, it's like just Home Depot run notes, Home Depot run hours, pictures, and it's just, it's a hot mess.
No, it's just you build the systems that help. Like when I was getting clean, everything I've done, you build the systems to help you get to where you want to go. And once you have those systems in place, it kind of helps that. That's probably one where like routines and systems, they bear a lot of the burdens for the things that make us feel stressed out. So it's like if you're stressed about money, developing a budget, even if you don't think it's going to change anything, it will make you feel better.
It will make you feel better, and I think that's the thing. The uncertainty to knowledge is going to be the main driver for taking that stuff away, taking those pressures away.
No, I would agree.
What time you got to go?
Pretty much. Whenever we finish here.
All right.
Pretty soon.
Last thing I wanted to ask you about was your bear hunting, because you don't talk to many people who bear hunt. And so how'd you get into it? Is there a little background to there you want to tell?
So I started hunting bear even before I met you, actually. My dad's a bear hunter, so we hunted I started going out with him when I was 7. We ran hounds on him, so it's like you go out, you through a variety of different methods. Pick up a bear scent, the hounds chase the bear, you get on that, you try to keep up with them across the mountains and streams, and
they're quick animals.
It's like a whole different thing. They're amazingly hardy. Like they're not even like other dogs either. They don't get tired. They don't it's insane. They don't get cold.
Dang.
And so you try to keep up with them until they catch up to the bear essentially, and then you shoot it. Usually they'll tree it, or somehow corner it, you put it down. I don't maintain hounds. I don't have the space. It's literally a whole lifestyle maintaining them, training them, taking
your 72 hours a week isn't going to help. Yeah,
not going to happen.
No.
Not until I'm older. But I love them. My dad still has a couple, or one died this week. But but anyway, so I stalk them with the mow. I go out depending on where I'm at, the land. You adapt your tactics to the land and the laws of the land. Every state has subtly different things, but. I go out with a bow. The last one was almost in Oregon. Up there.
That one was by yourself, right?
Yeah, I do them all. Solo bear hunter.
Solo bear hunter.
Yeah.
Which, if you're novice to bear hunting, I recommend probably not.
Yeah, probably good to avoid that.
I think that falls into the same thing of pushing your threshold, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is, and I if you're just if you're just getting into things, probably avoid that. But
just some guy walk out there with just a recurve.
Yeah, I'm ready. Where's Smokey at?
Where's Smokey?
But yeah, no, and just like running the ultras alone. I like being alone, and I like independence and self-sufficiency in the things that I do within reason.
Yeah, obviously. Now that with the fiance, and obviously you guys have been dating for a while.
Yeah.
There's probably some adjustments. That had to be made and will probably continue to be made, but
I had to throttle it back a little bit. But yeah, so you get out there, you track them over glass, or you see where they're eating or what they're doing. You try, try to pick up that trail and try to anticipate where they're going to be, and just like anything else, put yourself in a position to get a shot on them before they can scent you.
When you were talking about kind of knowing the lay of the land, right? Like the biggest thing is making sure you have a general idea. So you were lucky enough to have been to that spot before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I've been going up there since I was a kid. So I still like. It's amazing how much you don't know about an area when you just go there and like you do pretty typical stuff and you stay like that. Yeah, but it's like once you leave the road and start, especially up where that's like old ancient forest, and start leaving the valley that you're used to and the hills surrounding that, and you start getting deeper into the backcountry. You're like, oh my god, like this is like literally a whole nother world.
Whole nother world. Yep.
Yeah, we forget.
Completely disconnected here in the city.
Yeah.
So is that something that you think you're able to do because of your training, or is it one of those where it's like you've been so specific in doing it for so long that that's just second nature, and like the working out is just kind of like, okay, a little topper on top?
I think it's both for sure. I think the biggest thing is just doing it. There's guys, there's old school bear hunters up there that I came up under, that my dad came up under, that don't, never lifted a weight in their life. They fought in wars, they did manual labor, they did stuff like, they farmed,
and
whatever.
They've just been doing that for years.
But I mean, so they're, what we would call now, it's now fashionable to call functionally strong. But they didn't train, they didn't do anything like that. They had just run up and down mountains, and I'm sure those guys, many of them would leave me behind.
Yeah.
But I am known even amongst other hunters for my condition, my just not really getting tired at the same.
You just keep going. You're just like a locomotive, just keep chugging away.
I mean, and I train like this also because I'm mostly hunting at we're sea level here, and I'm mostly hunting at between 4,000 and 7,000 feet.
It's quite a big elevation.
Yeah, I mean, it affects you more than most people would be willing to admit, and there's no way to compensate for it at ground. The training mat, you can do a million things. Nothing's going to prepare you.
Yeah, we talked about the mask or whatever, low oxygen chambers or whatever. It's just
not going to help you.
It's not the same.
No. You just got to build such a massive aerobic base that when you take it, when you lose 30% of it overnight, you still have enough to
keep chugging along
and also think, because like your decision making process and reaction time, it's not just you're like, oh, I'm tired. It's like your brain's not working, it doesn't have as much oxygen. Your brain's not working as well, your reactions are slower, your decisions are foggier.
Inefficiency, right, so of the whole body.
Yeah, and then it starts getting cold on top of it. You really have to be like, all right, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm serious about this thing. So that's why I train for that more even than I train for fighting. Because like, this thing could actually kill me.
Is anything, maybe I shouldn't ask this with Janae watching, but are you willing to tell any stories about near-death bear experiences?
Oh, no, I've been pretty lucky. I've come close with some, but none that no revenant scenes.
No revenant scenes. Oh
no, I've been pretty lucky. I've had it. It's mostly that you see them and you realize they were closer than you thought, or you kind of. You don't see them, but you smell them or hear them, and then you hear branches breaking, and you have to pause for a sec before and be like, "Are those branches breaking towards me or away from me?"
Or away from me.
Yeah. So I've had allegedly, perhaps, maybe had some of those, but no, never. Not yet to go. Legend of the Fall, hand to hand.
There's still time.
Yeah, that'd be a way to go in your 60s, 70s for sure.
Yeah. Do you carry a firearm with you during that time?
I carry a bow and a big Bowie knife, and that's it. It is a good idea to have a gun with you in the back country, but for me, where I'm hunting, it's wolf country and cougar country, and grizzly country as well as black bears. So. A gun could come in handy, but it's not likely to make much of a difference in my bow. If something wants to take me and is on me, it's not going to be time for me to draw a gun and acquire a target and put meaningful rounds down range. It's just going to be me and a knife real quick.
Yeah, happens. I think it comes down to like your close combat training. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's like it's just not like a human. They're so much faster, stronger. They're going to drop from above, or like you're not going to draw your gun, acquire a target, and put any quality rounds down range. It's just going to be on you, and you're more likely to shoot yourself at that point.
Oh, jeez, that's terrifying.
So I'd rather just knife and luck, and hopefully avoid that situation altogether.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing with hunting. I've never been hunting. Obviously, I talked about talking to you about maybe heading out there at some point. That would be super fun.
I'll take you out.
Yeah, and then I'll bring the gun.
You can bring the gun.
I'll bring the gun. I won't shoot you. like you said, I'll probably end up shooting myself. Not very good with them, but yeah, that's so. How does bear taste? Last question.
It tastes good, but it gets a bad rap because first off, like bear tastes like what it's eating. So if you're shooting a bear, you shoot a high desert bear that's been eating carrion and surviving on grubs, then you're probably not going to taste amazing.
Not great.
The ones I hunt in the spring in Idaho tend to live off morel mushrooms and little baby onions, so they taste good.
Okay.
And then in the fall, pretty much everywhere, at least out in this part of the country, they just live on berries.
Berries.
Yeah, so bear tastes good. But see, it's like also, like if you walked up to, even a nice cow and you just cut a chunk of meat out of its rump and you try to sear it on, and cut it up and just see, it wouldn't taste very good. Like, whereas
the prep is
the butchering process, the packing out of the meat too, that assuming it doesn't get gamey or get sour or anything like that. But on top of that, it's like the actual cut. Like, so some people it's like you try to cut a rump roast of any animal, it's not going to be amazing. You take a nice cut of bear back strap and you season it, and you sear it, some butter and garlic, and that's going to be some of the best meat you've ever had.
Slow cook it, something like that. Yeah, that's something that obviously as fitness people, I'm sure we taste a little bit more because it's like we're so used to this. Let's just cook the chicken as fast as we can to get on because it takes so much time. But then when you have time to like really cook something, it's like, man, this tastes on a different level. Even though it's the same thing you've been eating.
Yeah, and and when you get the game too with elk or bear or even just venison, and it's just the flavor is nuanced and complex and tender, and you just have a sense of the protein, the quality of the protein, if you're a fitness person.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of it, some of it psychological. I'm sure it is.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. 100%.
But you're also getting completely clean protein that your body is, evolved to eat over millions of years, completely
different from
anything else.
With the what you see at these like massive
pesticides,
farms
hormones, herbicide. None of this shit is mixed in with the along the food chain at all.
Well, what was someone came up with a stat that like if you use tap water for fish after 3 generations of the fish, like they can't produce because of like
I didn't even know that
chemicals
or something.
Fluoride. Someone said it was due to like female birth control because it's in the system.
I have heard that stuff like that. That's interesting. But
and that's wild, right? And so like there's
think about.
They're drinking out of springs, they're eating berries that haven't been touched.
Yeah.
And so it's just like you said, it's a different level of cleaner meat versus the one that says no GMOs or whatever, because they're still
they're climbing mountains all day. They're not in a pen or a cage or indoors.
Like
there's sunlight.
There,
they're having sex. They're they're fighting. They're living an actual life.
Actual life.
And then and that brings up the ethics too. And it's like that thing, like a clean shot from my arrow. That thing is not going to feel pain. It's going to zip through. You're going to be confused. They're going to take off, run 100 yards or so, lay down, and that's going to be it. It's like, or an animal can be raised under fluorescent lights, injected with things, a bolt gun to the head, and then its throat cut, and then bled out, and then you slowly butcher it while it watches its friends getting butchered ahead of it. And it's like, Jesus, dude.
That's dark.
And you know what I mean? Well, but
dark.
I mean, it really, like, that's a reality.
Really
and even like the vegan stuff, like, they're processing these massive fields of wheat, and they're just taking out deer and fawns and cutting small raccoons and all sorts of small animals.
Well, and that was someone came with a stat that they were talking about the amount of chemicals it takes for like the chemicals in a vegan diet that the farms need to use are like getting in the water and like killing fish and going out to the ocean and killing a bunch of animals.
Well, they destroy the environment. Like, they'll take out a forest or a section of woodland just to fill it up with wheat.
Yeah, and that's where obviously I think it's an individual's responsibility, right? So it's like my wife and I have talked about building our garden and then like going to local farmers and going halves in on a cow. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no,
and
I think that's an excellent option.
That's so much more sustainable that everyone were to do that, or at least a large portion. All of that stuff that we talked about, the inhumane treating of animals, and obviously the mass cropping, probably could come down a small percentage, but
go buy half a lamb, or even like a smaller, lamb, goat, whatever, pig, whatever. Like, that's a feasible thing a lot of families can do.
Well, and obviously it's a lot of upfront costs, because if you think about it, like buying,
you're gonna spend that anyway. If your budget can take it in that month, though, it's well worth your time.
Yeah, it's just more money up front, but it is cheaper per pound.
Yeah, per meal, right?
Per an exponential amount.
Even compared to fast food, I'd be willing to bet.
Well, fast food is expensive.
I know, bro.
It's
$15 a person, $10-15 a person.
for a place that we used to get like dollar menu stuff.
Taco Bell, I'm telling you.
Mexi Melts. That was my jam.
Oh, you tried that deli down the street?
Better Foods?
Yeah, dude. I went there for the first time. It was really good.
It is really good. I'm a big fan of supporting local businesses. Obviously, we're a local business, so Better Foods. Have you been to Roundhouse Deli over by the? Yeah, that place.
They do those tri-tip tacos, and sandwiches. Yeah,
they are packed all the time.
Yeah, they are. I think it's all the rail workers.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should probably get you.
Yep. All right. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
I won't be in tomorrow, but
peace out, guys.